So I'm here being attacked by roses in Christina's garden. We're in Oslo at her house, and she's got some beautiful roses. They're not triffids, they're roses.
That's not a rose.
That's not this isn't a rose
That's a
though.
rose.
This is a rose.
Yes, a rose is a rose
I'm
is a
getting
rose.
I'm getting better at identifying roses.
Okay.
But while we're in Norway, one of the questions that I always get on my Speaking Fluently Facebook page, and also on videos as well, and I think we see it in the forum quite a lot,
Yep.
on the How to Learn a Language forum. Which language would you go for if you were trying to learn a Scandinavian language? Would you go for Danish, Norwegian, or Swedish?
Well, to be quite frank, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is if you have a strong motivation for any of the three languages, I'll go for that. If you have a Swedish grandma, you have Danish friends, go for those. If you have no particular connection to either language, I would actually go for Norwegian.
Okay.
And I don't say that because I am Norwegian, but because Norwegian is sort of the middle ground, the middle language. Because the vocabulary of Norwegian is very, very close to Danish.
Yeah.
It's almost identical. The Danes have their own pronunciation, though, which is very different from Norwegian.
Special.
Very special, very unique pronunciation, but it's almost the same vocabulary.
Okay.
Now, Swedish is also easy for us because the accent and the way of speaking is very similar. We have no problems with their pronunciation. Even the Swedish dialects are easy for us. So if you don't know what to choose, I'd take Norwegian. But again, if you have a very strong motivation for one of the languages, I'll just go with that. Because either way, you will understand a lot of either language.
I mean, that's been my experience having done Swedish. I did
Yep.
Swedish at university for 2 years, and the reason I chose Swedish was because I could do Icelandic. And the only way to do Icelandic was to do Swedish.
Yeah.
So that's how I chose Swedish, which is a terrible reason, but
I've heard worse.
but I actually ended up liking Swedish as well. So
Yeah.
it worked out well. And I found that in Norway I've always been able to communicate with people without any problems or read a newspaper.
Yeah.
I mean, the written language is a lot easier anyway, I think you'd agree.
Yeah.
But the spoken language, in terms of access to it,
Yeah.
sort of either TV, media, which of the two others would you have most access to here in
Oh, that is definitely Swedish. We
Okay.
have access to 3 Swedish channels,
Right,
and we have had access to that even since I was a little kid.
right.
Whereas Danish, I suppose there may be some parts of the country where you can get Danish channels, but sort of on a regular basis, you do not get Danish channels, which is sad because, as I said, the languages are really close, and with just a little bit of exposure, you understand everything.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I have never ever met a Dane that I did not understand either, even though I haven't had much exposure to it. But as we were discussing with my husband the other day, he actually speaks with his Danish colleagues in English, which I think is appalling. And I see absolutely no reason for it because, as I said, I've never met a Dane that I didn't understand.
In with a language like, say, for example, Norwegian,
Yes?
the thing that some people are quite surprised by when they first arrive here
Yeah.
are signs in 2 languages, and then they've learned that there's Nynorsk, New
Yes.
Norwegian, and Bokmål, the book language.
Yeah.
So, which Norwegian should someone go for?
Oh, definitely the normal, regular bokmål, because nynorsk is not something you really get exposed to a lot.
Right.
And there's about 10, possibly 15%, but I'd go more for 10% of the population that actually write nynorsk.
Okay.
And besides, you need to know that nynorsk is not a spoken language. It's just a written language. So you have nynorsk and dialects. And most people would prefer the standard Norwegian, standard Eastern Norwegian, which is the one that is spoken at television and most of the media, rather than a dialect. Now, having said that, I know a lot of people are freaked out by the Norwegian dialects. There's really no reason to. mostly because you do not usually get that much exposure to them. And when you do, if you do get a little bit exposure, you'll probably get used to it pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's not an unsurmountable problem. And the few dialects that are really hard are usually well hidden in the mountains or away, and you won't come across them.
As a foreigner coming over to Norway,
Yeah.
how easy is it, do you think, to interact with Norwegians in Norwegian instead of them saying, you know what, we'll just speak English?
I think if you actually say to Norwegians, I would like to practice my Norwegian, they will do that.
Okay.
If most Norwegians go into English, it's because they think that it's the polite thing to do.
Okay.
They think you'll be more comfortable if they speak English. But the moment they know or they'll learn that you actually want to speak Norwegian, they will speak Norwegian with you, providing you speak any Norwegian at all.
Okay.
Of course, if your level is like, I want bread,
Yeah.
and that's it, that's your entire vocabulary,
Yeah.
the conversation won't go very far.
It'd be quite short, yeah.
Yes.
It'd be okay in a bakery.
Yeah, but once you step out of the bakery, it's going to be an extremely short conversation.
Yeah, I get that. But I think the key thing is, and this is another problem when you learn a language like Norwegian or Danish or Swedish or Dutch, is the level of English in those countries is extremely high, or Icelandic even.
Yeah.
Don't leave Icelandic out. But yeah, they're all very high levels of English. So I think that's one thing that tends to worry a lot of learners when they go, okay, but my native language is English, especially if that's your native tongue. Then you're really aware that English is a language you can use without any problem whatsoever. There are no barriers.
I'd probably go for a white lie and say I'm Dutch, and then nobody will try to speak Dutch with you, and they'll or some other European language that you can pass up. Hungarian is perfect. There's not a soul that's going to try Hungarian on you. So you just say
Okay.
Hungarian. Jeg forstår ikke engelsk. Jeg er ungarsk, and you'll be fine. No problem.
We'll put subtitles on them a little bit there.
Yeah.
I think that's very good though. Good
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, and thanks
You're
for a
welcome.
lovely time here in Norway.
You're most welcome.